We wanted to basically amplify the voices of all those people, who have real experiences in the workplace that nobody wants to hear about, but that need to, that are actually what people want to hear about when they look at reviews on these websites. Like, you don't want to see, all of the positive reviews left by, I don't know, like the people who had a great experience at this company because probably, like they were a man and they were white and, like, sure, they probably had a great experience, but what about like all the experiences of the people you relate to?
Hey, Lucy. Thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you today, to talk about YourEqual, to talk about your journey as a founder in the tech space, your experience also from working in the German market, and just what you feel like you can share with others around how we can make our workplaces more equitable.
Yeah, happy to share.
Fab. So let's start. Tell people like who you are, what you're about, and what you do.
Yeah. So I'm Lucie. I'm a French person who's been living in Berlin for the past 12 years. I started originally as a translator at the beginning of my career, translating from English and German into French, and got to work in tech first at eBay, where I was like training AI models. And I kind of, like after that experience at eBay, like just was very interested in the tech world in general. And I still wanted to work in content, but I didn't want to do just translations. So yeah, that kind of led me to redirect to technical writing and then like do a bunch of like other, like jobs around content in the product development lifecycle. And yeah, like from this experience, I kind of learned a lot, like about how to build a product, how to build a good product, an inclusive product, and what not to do. And since last year, I've been working as a freelance content designer, like kind of doing my own thing because like I said, like I've seen a lot of like what not to do, and I kind of want to do things that are more interesting, more inclusive, and in my own way. And I'm also the co-founder and managing director of YourEqual, which is a community-led employer rating platform that I started like around 3 years ago with a group of friends. And we launched it in June, and that's where I am right now.
Wonderful. I want you to tell us a little bit more about the YourEqual platform and your journey, and just I think also sharing the founder's journey, co-founder's journey, what you found. So I think first of all, let's start off with what YourEqual is, because I've used the platform and I've known it for I think about 2 years, and I think it's wonderful. But let's talk about what it actually is and what it does. And I think what would also be interesting is why is it different to Glassdoor?
Yeah. I started this project, to be completely honest with you, like it was more of a passion project at the beginning with my friends. Like we just wanted to build something together and like build a service to the community. And we kind of ended up like actually founding like a company and really going for it, because we saw that like there was really a need for this product to come to life, and a lot of people were kind of supporting our journey and helping us with that. And basically the idea for the product came from our own experience in the workplace. So my two other co-founders and I, like we used to work at the same workplace. And
okay, that's key sometimes, right? That
exactly.
United experience.
We worked at the same workplace, and which was a very toxic work environment. We all had our, like own challenges with management, with a lot of different things like at that workplace. And kind of like what got us started with this idea is basically like one of us got discriminated against on their return from maternity leave, and I decided to first report the incident, like internally. I tried to make it known to leadership and to see what I could do inside the company, because I don't know, to me it was just so very obviously unfair. Like I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. So I tried internally. It didn't have any effect. And so what I did is that I went to Glassdoor to report it. And so the
Okay.
review, it was difficult to get it published. I was asked by the platform to kind of mind my language in the review. Like first of all, like it wouldn't get published because I figured it had the word discrimination in it. Like once I deleted
Okay.
it, I didn't get the warning from the platform again.
So there's
But
trigger words, is there, on Glassdoor, which
yeah,
stops your review from actually being like published?
exactly. Like
Okay.
you get a little warning basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they just ask you to reread your review and are you sure you want to publish this and blah blah blah. And I feel like I don't know, like I was just like, I don't think discrimination is a bad word. Like I'm not sure why it's filtered, but like okay, I will try to write my review without this word, which I did. I still couldn't publish it for some reason, so
So they're
I
censoring
reached,
you. They're censoring
yeah,
people's reviews. Oh,
exactly. So I reached out to support. Support had a look at my review and was like, "Yep, no, it's fine." Like, so they published it. So then it was there like for a while, for like a month or something, and I guess it started being like very visible in the company. I wasn't working there anymore, but I got some, some feedback from former colleagues like that had seen the review, and like I could see that it was getting like likes and it was a bit like it was getting up like on their profile. um and yeah, I don't know what happened exactly, but what I do know is that like a month later I received an email telling me that my review was basically breaking the code of conduct or whatever that was, and that
okay.
it had been taken down.
So what do you think happened?
Like, I mean, I
The company?
honestly,
Yeah.
I think the company,
Yeah.
like put pressure on the platform to get the review down because like it was just too annoying for them like
Yeah.
to deal with it. I mean, they could have just done the right thing, like and rectified
It's
the the mistake. It
Yeah,
wasn't that
they could
difficult.
they could have. It's funny because I say this because I had a very similar experience with Glassdoor a long
Yeah,
time ago, where I left a review which was very honest about a very toxic place where there was a lot of bullying,
yeah,
and I tried 5 or 6 times, and then it just would never get published. I think like you, I managed to get it published once, and then it got taken down, and
yeah.
then so I lost trust in the platform.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I don't know if you experienced that, but so when my review was taken down, like I didn't even have the possibility to edit it or change it in because like they just told me it's breaking, like anonymity rules or whatever. I was identifiable because I left my title. And
Hmm.
basically, because like there was only me with that title in the company, like you could know who I was. And therefore, you could know by association who the people I was talking about like were. And I was like, okay, I can, like I can change that. I'll just put it in anonymous or whatever. But uh, I think my account just got shadow banned because like I just couldn't do anything anymore. And that was that.
So how's
And
your platform different?
well, we don't do that. No, like we really wanted. So we had the idea with my co-founders about like to just do our own platform, like as a result of this experience, because we were like, really, there's no way to get heard, like anywhere, not inside the company, not outside the company, and then like legal recourses are costly. It's you have to know the system. You have a very short window of time, like to do anything, and yeah, like, it just wasn't worth it. So one night, like we were just talking about that, and we're like, yeah, you know what? Like we should do our own platform. And I thought at the beginning, did we say that? Are we just kidding, or are we really gonna do it? And we really did it. So
That's
we
incredible.
yeah, we wanted to basically amplify the voices of all those people, who have real experiences in the workplace that nobody wants to hear about, but that need to, that are actually what people want to hear about when they look at reviews on these websites. Like you don't want to see, all of the positive reviews left by, I don't know, like the people who had a great experience at this company because probably, like they were a man and they were white and, like sure, they probably had a great experience. But what about like all the experiences of the people you relate to, who are queer, who are disabled, who, have their own challenges in the workplace? And that's what we wanted to make visible with the platform. So a safe space, like for people to relay their experiences and we hear them and we see them. Like that was the most important for us at the beginning. And then when we started to think, like about like how we could, grow this platform and make an impact, like in terms of changing the workplace, we were like, yeah, like actually it would be a great starting point, like for companies to have this data that we're going to be gathering so that they can improve their culture and, like hopefully become better. So that's one of our goals as well, is to just like be there to start a dialogue with companies and help them to do better by their marginalized communities.
And I remember you explaining it to me before, was that you are able to filter by different identities. So then, therefore, I'm allowed to see a specific company and the experiences of Black people or Black
Exactly.
women, for example, and seeing the differences on what the experiences are for people who come from those identities versus what might be the majority group.
Yeah, exactly. Like so the way it works, like if you're an employee right now, is that you can just like go to the platform to read the reviews, or you can go to the platform to leave a review. And the real difference with Glassdoor and all of these other platforms is that when people leave a review with us, they're asked at the end, like if they want to share some data about themselves, like we ask them about their protected characteristics. So if they're a person of color, if they're from the queer community, that kind of things. And we just ask them if they want to share it in their review so that people can see, like this review was left by someone identifying as this and this and that. And they can relate better to the experience of the person. And we don't have the filters yet on the company pages, like we're going to implement them. But yeah, like the goal is that as a person going to read a review on the platform, you're able to filter these reviews by what you're interested, like the insights you're interested in seeing. Like if you want to see just reviews from Black people, for example, because that you want to know that as a Black person, you're going to be treated right by the company. And I think that's what's really different, like for us, like in terms of what we're offering, as
I
well
think
as
that's
yeah. Sorry,
I
what's
think
that?
that's incredible, right? And I think that's so incredible, specifically for us that come from marginalized or minoritized groups, because quite often, you're asking if you know anyone, you're asking,
Yes.
for information like through the grapevine, or like, is it okay,
Yeah, yeah,
and it depends on which part of your identity is the most important for you. It could be that, like for me, I'm a mum, and so sometimes my concern is, am I going to be able to work in an environment that understands that I have a small child? Most of the
exactly.
time, I'm caring about whether the environment is actually going to be safe for me as a Black person. And then
Yeah.
also, I also want to know about gender equality, what's going on with gender equality in terms of where are women in leadership and decision making roles. But I also want to know if there are any Black and brown women in those leadership
Of course,
making
yeah.
roles. I also want to know what's the queer representation in those companies. Like, what's if they are truly inclusive, you know, because I think a lot of companies say they're truly inclusive and they
Yeah.
miss one of the key things for me, which is around disability, because they focus on things like ethnicity, race, gender. These ones are easy, you know,
Yeah.
super easy, but disability is a lot more complex, because we measure disability differently. And also, you know, you've got the hidden disabilities, you've got visible disabilities, etc.,
Exactly.
etc. And a company would just have to adapt, you know, to the needs of someone who lives with a disability or a condition. And I think they do a lot of pretending in terms of being inclusive, completely inclusive, when they pick the ones that feel like the easiest, like gender, for example. So I think that that is incredible. And I really loved the user experience when I left my review. And I tell you what I really liked as well was the questions, the way you're prompted. I'm guessing you spent a lot of time figuring out what were the right questions to ask and
Yeah.
how to ask them in order to keep people on the platform, because sometimes leaving reviews can be quite long. You know, it
Yes.
wasn't massively long, but sometimes can be quite long, can be quite an arduous task. You know, you can kind of get fed up in the middle. Like, what did you do? What did you do to make sure that that process would guarantee people to actually end it and submit a review?
So first of all, we did some user research because the set of questions that you can see in the platform now is very different from the set of questions that we had at the beginning. At the beginning, I kind of put like everything that was in my brain like together, and I just like put the questions in an order that I thought made sense to me. But of course, like, I don't know, I thought that was making sense to me, but maybe not to the people that we're trying to serve. So we were really lucky. We got to work with some really amazing colleagues who organized basically like a workshop for free with us. To do some user research. So it was a public workshop where we invited the community to basically co-design the flow with us and to ask them basically what they want to know about a company, like, and how the experience should feel like for them. And we discovered like there were a lot of things that I thought made sense to me, but actually, like for example, like thought people would prefer to answer stuff that were more personal at the beginning than like answering questions about like company policies or diversity and equity and inclusion. But actually, some people said that it felt less intimidating for them to start with the things they could observe in the company and to go more like into the personal experience. So based on that feedback, I rearranged all the questions, the order. I structured them as well. Like I tried to find like themes that made sense, and I completely rewrote them as well because like in the meantime, I also educated myself a lot on inclusive language, what that meant for different communities. For example, like I wasn't too sure at the beginning, like if I should use a person first language or identity first language for people, for disabled people. And it turns out that a majority prefer identity first language. So that's why, for example, I say disabled because, it's society that disables people,
Mm-hmm.
not the opposite way around. I use disabled instead of persons with disabilities. I did really like a ton of research, like on how to make people from like all the marginalized communities we want to serve to make sure that they're like comfortable and they feel cared for and respected in their identity. And yeah, and then like I had obviously an amazing team with me who helped me with the visual design and the UX of it all. And we made sure that like the questions are paced in a way that's not too that doesn't get too long. Like we added, like we wanted people to always know that they can stop, where they are in the flow, how long they still have to go, which I found was missing in a lot of platforms, other platforms, for example, that I use. Like I did a lot of user research on
You can tell.
Kununu.
You can definitely tell. Yeah, you've got a really
Yeah.
strong product. You can tell.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I couldn't use my Glassdoor account anymore because I was shadow banned, but I used my account on Kununu just to kind of see like what they were doing and how we could do it better, basically. Because I kind of got like I left one review on Kununu, I think, and I got quite frustrated with their flow because they never
Mm,
tell you, like where you are, how many questions you still have
yeah.
left. The questions were very unclear for me. Like I didn't know what they were asking about. So I really wanted to pay attention to that and yeah, like make sure people are cared for. That was, yeah, my
Yeah,
main
I
concern.
love the fact you spoke about the language as well, because I think when it comes to DEI, is there's so much importance around the value of language and how we
Exactly.
use language as a power dynamic. I want to talk about that after, but I wanted to ask you about your co-founder journey,
Yeah.
because actually, obviously, founding something from the bare bones, right, with no real equity and
Yeah, no.
no funding, right? I want to know how you found that experience and if you have, if there's anything that you would do different.
Um, I don't know if there's anything that I would do different because things happen just the way they happened, and that's just, like how we went about it. And I think, everyone has a different journey. But it was not easy. Like I'm not gonna lie. I'm so incredibly proud that we managed to stick together, like for these 3 years, because we have almost like the same team as from the beginning. And
That's
that
incredible, and it's rare.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that we managed to, I mean, so much happened, like during these 3 years. Like we were hit with a pandemic and with wars and, like things that affected really like each and every one of us, and personal life events. And I don't know, like it was, and you still have to maintain, like that momentum and like the will to keep building that product and put it into the world with like zero money, but our own. Um,
And were
we,
you all working as well somewhere else? Is everybody else do?
yes,
You know, is this a side hustle, right? That's
at the
turned
beginning,
into,
yeah, it
yeah.
was it was kind of a side hustle at the beginning. Like we were all working full time, and then like so we kept having good work experiences, but also like still bad experiences. Like on my side, for example, I didn't have a great experience at my last employer, and after that, like I decided to switch to freelancing because I wanted more flexibility and I just was more interested in doing my own thing at this point and to work on YourEqual. And yeah, like at this point we had we knew we wanted to launch the product this year, and that, I don't know, someone needed to, we kind of needed to go for it at some point and just like really put the time into it. And little by little, like that, like we kind of all reduced our working hours. So our backend engineer, for example, they reduced their working hours and decided to dedicate the rest of their week to the project. As a freelance, I was like a lot more flexible to, like tech work, not tech work. So for example, like to be able to launch the product, like I took the last 3 months almost entirely off my activity and I just focused on that. One of my other co-founder was unemployed and used the used the time for that, and then that's when it started. Like we started like really making progress and going much faster, and yeah, like we managed to launch, but it was not easy. Like without any money, you really need a strong team and I mean, we see ourselves as a community, like we're here to give a service to the community. And I think that's the mission as well that kind of like got us like together. And the fact like none of us is in there like to make money out of this, like of course we need revenue and we want to make it like a proper business, but none of us is here to get shares and
Yeah.
like
So you're basically problem solving because at the
yeah.
moment, let's talk about work culture because you're your product is about work culture, right? It's
Exactly,
rooted in
yeah.
understanding culture and then how you can change culture for the better based on these data points from people who are leaving reviews. So let's talk about work culture because I'm fascinated right now with how much, I mean, I think culture always evolves
Yeah.
because we always evolve, things are always changing, things are always moving. If you just think about just digitally, or even the impact of immigration from one market to another, how that impacts the culture somewhere. But I think that work culture has changed so much in the
Yes.
last, I'd say 3 to 4 years, right? Really, it was happening before COVID, I would say. It was happening before
Yeah.
COVID. I think that people were looking for a different way to offer their time to an organization. And
Yes.
but also, I think people became more aware of what you were giving away. I think that became something that was generational. I think millennials were the first ones that were like, what the hell is going on here? And then Gen Z. And I think what happened was, right, so millennials were a bit like, oh my God,
Yeah.
everybody's doing this, but okay, I'll pretend. But when there's more of us, we're going to start talking about what the hell is happening here.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think obviously COVID happened. And as COVID happened, don't forget, Gen Z came into the workplace,
Yeah.
right? So you've got cultural changes happening from COVID, and then you've got cultural changes coming from the first generation that is digitally native, right? And that to me has really impacted where I think work's going to go. I don't think we're there yet, but I think our mindsets have changed. I wanted to know what you think about work culture, what you've seen change, and
Yeah.
what you what you also would like to see change with work culture.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Like, I think we had, I mean, the pandemic was a major change. It really triggered so much because we needed to work remotely, first of all, like for 2 years. And then everybody saw that, yeah, the world didn't end like during these 2 years. Like companies were still making like record profits and it worked. So I think like after that, like a lot of people were just not willing to go back to the office like the way it was before. I am part of these people, for example. It had such a huge impact on my mental health, like to be able to work from home.
Me
Because
too.
I discovered like first of all, I'm neurodivergent, and I discovered that during the pandemic. I was just like, yeah, it makes total sense that I was so stressed out like all the time in an office environment because I am so sensitive to sound, to people's emotions, like I absorb everything that's around me. So it was much better for me to be at home. I kind of figured out that way, like the rhythm that works best for me as well. And yeah, and I had a lot of friends who have kids and were also like, I cannot go back to, like,
Game changer. Game
yeah,
changer.
exactly. Yeah, like I cannot go back to working the way it was before, or like and no, like it worked fine during these 2 years, like caring for having the time to care for my kids and doing the work that I need to do, like whenever I need to do it. So why should I go back to work like that? And I think like what we've seen as well that's really important is that so many more people, disabled people, like got into employment during the pandemic because it didn't make any difference anymore since you didn't need to go to an office. And offices are, I mean, I don't know a lot of offices that are fully accessible for people who use a wheelchair, for example. And yeah, like we've seen that, like a lot of like injustices like this like got corrected during the pandemic, and that's why like people do not want to let it go. And I feel like at the moment I can feel this tension like between companies and employees, like no one wants to let it go, like companies like want to get back to the way it was before because capitalism, I guess. And then employees are like, no, no, no. Like now we've seen what was possible during the pandemic. So yeah, like we are not willing to go back to the way things were before. And yeah, with Gen Z also, like for whom the system works even less than the previous generation, they're like, nah, like, I'm not about that life. And I think they have their priorities right, to be honest.
I agree. I completely agree. I think that work culture is definitely something that is changing slowly in front of our eyes, but I think that what we want is for it to be much quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's they're dragging their feet. And I said to someone, I said, I don't think they'll win, I don't think they'll win the war with this one because
No.
they'll need people. And I think what Gen Z come in is that Gen Z, the Gen Z have got so many other options to make money than to sit in an office, They've got TikTok shop. I wanted to know if you think that companies can ever truly be inclusive, claim to be inclusive, if they are not, if they demand for their employees and their workforce to come back into the office, knowing full well that we knew, right? If for some of us who didn't know beforehand, but I think the disabled community were so loud during COVID about the fact that they were so disappointed in the able community and for the general infrastructure in society had let them down because they had been asking for these changes just on a personal level, and they were always told no. But during the pandemic, everybody was able to. So for once, they finally saw it was possible and that there was now more opportunity for them to be able to be integrated into society. And one of the key ways to integrate people into society is through employment, right? So if employees know that, right, we have all the data to support that, can they truly be inclusive if they are demanding people to go back into the office?
I don't think so. Like, I think if you do not offer, like a remote work as an employer, you are not inclusive because then now we know it excludes people who are physically disabled, it excludes people who are immunocompromised, who have chronic conditions. It excludes like so many people from the job market, and you cannot call yourself inclusive if you don't think about all of these populations. So for me, remote work is a must. Like you need to offer it. I mean, in my ideal workplace, like I imagine that a truly inclusive employer would have this possibility, but also have maybe an office or a co-working space where people who like to work in an office and are better at working in an office, like can also go, like if they need to, like I think people should be offered what they need to perform, basically. And that's what makes a company inclusive.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like me personally, I would like the option, like because I like a change of scenery. I'm the kind of person I prefer to be at home than being in the office. If you ask me what my preference is, but I don't mind going in every now and again. I just don't want to be there all the time. And the reason why I don't want to be there all the time is I think that too much of the culture is it's aggressive, and I almost feel like it's just like this heavy thick air, and it's just like it's taking over. So I can go in a couple of times, but otherwise I don't want to spend my life there and be around so many different personalities. It's just not for me.
Yeah, no, I totally understand, totally agree.
I want to know how you think the work environment, what it's going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. You have an idea based on the data that you're seeing and the information that you know?
I don't know how it's going to look like. I can tell you what people want, though.
Yeah, we'd love to know. What do people want? Tell us.
I mean, like we don't have so much data right now. Like we launched end of June, so but we still I'm pretty like proud to say like we've got like 9 reviews already, so like really happy with that. But yeah, like I can tell from the reviews that diversity, equity, and inclusion is like it's a non-negotiable now. Like it's people are not willing to work with companies that do not have like any understanding of what that is and what that looks like. They are not willing to tolerate also like performative DEI because like some companies might seem like they're really aware and they might have like really good intentions also like from what I've seen. But they do not know how to implement that correctly and then the employees like suffer the consequences. So yeah, like I think progressively like it's gonna be less and less acceptable like not to know about diversity, equity, and inclusion, not to respect the law also. Like you wouldn't believe also like the number of companies that I don't know don't have like the basic tools that they should have like to avoid discrimination or like I don't know, there's a lot of companies that don't even know that they are not respecting the law. So I think it's just gonna become like less and less acceptable that people are way more aware of their rights. They're way more aware of like what's possible since we've seen what was possible and yeah, now it's really you can say it's really a choice, you know, like not to like to choose not to accommodate your employees. And yeah, like I think it's not gonna happen like from one day to another, but I think we're definitely seeing a shift right now, and especially when Gen Z is gonna be in management position, and
Yeah.
like, this is gonna change a lot.
Oh hell, we'll be too old, but you know, at least for the ones coming up, I think we'll see a lot more. I think we'll see a lot more equity. So I think in some places
Yeah,
we get a reasonable amount of diversity, and sometimes we can get a reasonable amount of inclusion. But I think a lot of organisations fail when it comes to equity because they don't really understand it, and they don't understand why it's really important. You know, I want to wrap up, and I want to talk about something quite topical. Because I want to talk about the impact of politics in our workplaces, right? Because I think traditionally, I don't know about you, but I was raised that, you know, you don't talk about things like politics and religion, etc. in most like public spaces, like outside of your immediate circles, you know, because there's such divisive topics. However, obviously, since social media, I mean, I think almost every topic is rooted in politics nowadays. I mean, except if people are dancing, but even then it can be because maybe people are appropriating dance. You know, one point at TikTok, it was about the black TikTok dancers who were creating TikTok moves, but actually white dancers were taking the same dance and they were getting more brand deals, etc., etc. So I think anything can become political, right? So we're getting more used to having political conversations.
Yeah.
And companies find this very hard to navigate properly. I've never seen, I personally never witnessed a company do it properly, especially when I was in my last company and it was around Black Lives Matter. And right now, across Europe and America, right, we're seeing so much racial tension.
Yeah.
Which I think for people who come from a non-white background is not that surprising. I'm never surprised when there is racial tension or that
absolutely.
When we see race riots and we see the far right come out, or we see, God forbid, someone who's black or brown being mistreated and brutalized or murdered. I hate to say it because it sounds like I've given up, but I'm never surprised by it. But we are seeing the rise of that across Europe, and we're seeing at the moment we're living in through this moment right now, through the race riots that are happening in the UK, which I think is such a telling point, right? Obviously because
Yeah.
I'm British, but also because I think the UK, as a marketeer, as someone who comes from a marketing background, I think the UK has had one of the best marketing campaigns and brand campaigns of all time. Is that it has completely projected an image of being the most progressive country, in not just in Europe, but in comparison to places like America or to
Mm.
Australia. It does that very hoity-toity look down on other places, like we're British and we don't do it like that. But actually, there's a lot of racism in the UK, and we're
Yeah.
seeing it now. And I wanted to know your thoughts on, let's take where we are right now with race, but how companies can navigate political topics like race, like gender identity, etc., that are, have been sparked off by a catalyst and will be impacting their workforce. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen, like you said, like at the moment there are race riots in the UK, and I've observed, like how my LinkedIn feed was like completely divided, like to be quite honest, like between white people and people of color. Like it feels like we're living in two different realities, and I feel like that could be where companies start, is to learn from their communities of color, and not from their employees directly, because that's putting emotional labor on your employees. But get yourself a consultant, like urgently, like when you see something like that happening in your country, it's obviously gonna affect your employees of color. So if you do not know, like what are the steps, like what to say or what to do, get yourself like an external consultant, and do it quick, and let them educate you and help you navigate this. Like if you're white, because like I'm guessing there's a lot of companies that also have like people of color in leadership, and like they would maybe know better what to do. And yeah, instead of wanting to kind of, because I've seen that in some companies, especially in tech, wanting to ban, like politic talks, like from the office, like I've seen in some companies.
Seen it too, happened in my last workplace, and it was, oh.
Yeah, no, like it's that's absolutely never gonna work. If you don't know how to deal with it, get a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just ask
I
someone
love this.
external to from your company, like how do I deal with this, like if you don't know, because like it's not gonna go away. Like your employees are real people who are affected by what's happening around them and by the politics that are, like it's the same as when people are refused abort, like trans people are refused, like gender affirming therapies in the US, or women are refused abortions in some states in the US. And it can be, as an employer, you have to know this is going to affect the quality of life of your of your employees, and you need to know how to answer that. So that would be, yeah, that's the shift we're also hoping to create with YourEqual. Like we kind of want to have, like, build this diversity, equity, and inclusion hub where we will have, like, DEI consultants who can advertise their services to companies on the platform, plus our own services, because we're also building up our own consultancy. And we basically want to be able to tell people, like, hey, here's the data that we have about your company, and we think you could benefit from this and this and that.
Lucy, thank you so much. I loved talking to you.